Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Great to have you here with us in our webinar. It's always great to be hosting the uHoo webinars, and I think we had quite a while a break. So nice to be back again with a good audience from all over the world, mainly Southeast Asia. From my side, greetings from the Philippines, where I live a happy life with a family, and most of the time, good, healthy air inside of our house. We have a lot of good fresh air here coming from the mountain and very little traffic around where we live now. We moved a little bit to the outskirts. And today we will be tackling the topic, the S in ESG, addressing the social factors for your sustainability agenda. Now, ESG is of increasing importance, in particular for listed companies, but as well sometimes suppliers, NGOs, and other organizations are being asked, what are you doing with regards to ESG? It stands for environment, social governance, and it's the new way how investors are rating companies with regards to potential risks and opportunities. It's about protecting against the downside of something going wrong and enhancing the upside of this stock performing better than its peers because it is doing the right thing in terms of managing the risks, environmental and social risks, and as well good governance, and then enhancing the environmental and social opportunities. Now, we will kick off today with a little poll for you guys to get into the subject. And let me pull up the first intro poll here and share it with you guys. Now, okay, I'm just wondering whether you can actually see it. Can I get a sign from someone whether you guys can actually see the poll? Nobody can see it. Yeah, it's a little bit odd because it asked me to share the results. Normally it says share the poll. So let me just share the poll. Can you see the poll now? Can you answer the poll? Maybe I need the team to help me with this, because normally I can always just share the poll and then but it seems here like the poll is already fully answered, so it's a little bit odd. Jessica and Iveti, can you please assist, or shall I close the poll if today the poll is not working? Yeah, I can see now. I think it's open for participation. Yes, great, it's working. I thought I was good at Zoom administration, but I learned a new trick now today. There we go. Which of the following social aspects concern you the most? It's multiple choice. Workplace health and safety, gender equality and inclusivity, politics, workplace politics, interesting topic, community relations, and then relationship with supplier and customers. Which of those social aspects concern you the most? Let's see what is the result. I think we've got a good response rate already. I will end the poll now. And now we can share the results. There we go. Workplace health and safety. Nowadays, often we call it employee wellness. And some people even talk about productivity, is the top scorer here in terms of 65%. Then we have second highest scorer is community relations. Then we have gender equality and inclusivity. Then we have relationship with supplier and customers. And the last one is the office politics. Yeah, that ain't really a specific social topic as such, but it sometimes takes over in organizations. But number one, and maybe this is a reflection of the audience as well, a lot of you guys are interested in workplace health and safety and employee wellness. So this is maybe no surprise today that this is on top of the agenda. But we will look at it fairly holistically today, and there will as well be a little raffle for you. It will happen after this event. Apparently, the winner can get a 30-minute consultation with some guy that's supposedly called the Green Man. So hopefully I'll be available at your time of choice for the organization, the person that is the winner, and that will be done subsequently to the event today, and you will be notified by email. So I will stop sharing, and I won't really go into the topic in detail. I'll let our two speakers really be the main contributors tonight. And we have Belinda de Sousa all the way from Australia, and she will be sharing today from an NGO perspective. Normally you expect this only to come from listed companies, but it's great to see the Australian Red Cross really take the lead here. Belinda is the head of environment, social and governance at the Australian Red Cross. She works for this premier humanitarian organization in Australia that helps protect human life and prepares communities to address climate-related emergencies. She's also an influential humanitarian advocate focusing on change management projects, social development programs, and corporate social responsibility, CSR initiatives. Belinda will talk about the increasing importance of addressing the social factor in organizations. So Belinda, we're looking forward to your sharing and contribution all the way from Australia. Over to you.
Thanks, Matthias. I'm just going to share my screen with you also. So if you can maybe let me know when you can see that, please.
Yeah, it's already visible, coming up. You can just make it, blow it. Ah, yeah, perfect. Excellent.
Okay, great. Thanks for that introduction, Matthias. So I work at the Australian Red Cross. I've also worked at large listed corporates, previously working with Indigenous communities, resolving environmental and social issues. And something about environment, social impact and governance, I think is very important, is that this is going to be different for every single company, depending on every single organisation's particular needs, risks and opportunities. So I'm going to share with you today some of what we are starting to do at Red Cross. This is a new area for Red Cross, so we are at the start of our journey. But also why this is so important. So regardless of not being subject to regulations and mandatory requirements like most listed companies around the world are starting to become, this is really important for all organisations, and we can really only achieve environmental, social impact and governance impacts through structural and systems change, which means we need to work on this together. So as Matthias said, my name is Belinda de Sousa and I'm the newly appointed head of ESG at the Red Cross, a new role. And I would also, as part of what is known as NAIDOC Week in Australia, would like to also acknowledge our Indigenous people, the people of the Kulin Nation, and pay respects to elders past, present and emerging of where I'm located today in Melbourne, Australia. So as Matthias indicated, environment, social impact and governance is really about our ability to create and sustain long-term value in a rapidly changing world and manage the opportunities and risks associated with these changes. And it really is not just about risk management, but also looking at the upside and the opportunities for each organisation and how we can each impact our community internally and externally. I've really only got 2 slides to share with you and to talk through. So for the Australian Red Cross, environment is, like many of you, our understanding that our energy usage and our reduction strategy. So for Red Cross, we are aiming to from our 2019 base, reduce our energy emissions by 20% by 2025 and net zero by 2040. Looking at our share of renewable energy resources, our climate change and adaptation strategy, our emission footprint, our use of raw materials, reduction and recycling of those, our environmental impact and stewardship of those, and our biodiversity management. And ESG, sometimes the focus for many companies has been really on these aspects, the E in ESG, but the humanitarian consequences of the environment are really intrinsic, and ES and G are so integrated that we really can't separate them. So we do know, for example, that humanitarian displacement, for example, is now 3 times greater due to natural disasters compared to conflict and violence. So more people are being forced to move internally and externally as a result of natural disasters caused by climate change and other climate factors than conflict and violence, and that has a flow-on impact to humanitarian requirements. People being forced to leave, people being forced to move into things like modern slavery, and the flow-on humanitarian of those aspects is devastating. So the S in ESG is really tightly related to our action and consistency in what we do with the environment. So for Red Cross, respecting humanity, including protecting life and ensuring respect for human beings, is part of our DNA and what we do. Eliminating modern slavery sometimes can seem like something that's not that relevant, but it is extremely relevant, not just in Australia, but throughout Asia Pacific and other countries throughout the world, even today. Through our supply chains, procurement channels, often we don't realise of the downstream impacts of selecting a particular supplier, but these are some of the questions and responsibilities that we now need to take accountability for, and often, in the case of Australia, report on also. Inclusion and diversity is more than just gender. So inclusion and diversity is really about embracing different perspectives from all different aspects of life, and that can include gender, but it can also include perhaps Indigenous employment. It could include different ethnicity. It can include different age, different perspectives on all aspects of life. So really understanding inclusion and diversity. So at Red Cross, for example, we've recently conducted a survey to understand our baseline. As you do with environment, you also need a baseline for the S, for the social, understand what are some of the issues, and things like mental health can be included in that, and understanding employees' needs in aspects such as mental health is something that has come out of that survey. Supply chain impacts. So how we select our suppliers, sometimes easy just to go for the cheapest supplier, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we're having the positive impact on society that we really can have. And so sometimes choosing a smaller or a local supplier can be extremely beneficial to the local economy, and that can be an impact that the organisation can have in the social space when selecting suppliers. So looking at things like, are we supporting vulnerable communities? At Red Cross, for example, we've recently gone through a tender process for our property management and maintenance, and an Indigenous company has actually won that tender. They weren't necessarily the most cost effective, but when that was considered together with other aspects and long-term economic benefits as well as social benefits, they were selected as our supplier in that area. Fair remuneration, training and development, workplace conditions, health and safety, employee retention are all really big topics, each of those on their own, and typically have been part of organisational processes even prior to ESG emerging as a kind of topical issue at the moment. So these are all things that obviously need to be maintained and strengthened. In the case of Red Cross, being a not-for-profit organisation, we rely on funding for everything that we do. So from our donors, from corporate partners, tendering for governments. So in this space, we were recently successful in a tender with the local government to install HVAC air conditioning, improving the air quality and air efficiency. So we were able to implement that, but we are restricted to how much we can do based on that funding issue. Training development and retention is a big issue in Australia and other parts of Asia as well at the moment, and can have a big impact retaining that talent and that knowledge, and in being able to make that impact as an organisation and retaining the key skills whilst also attracting those new skills. And fair remuneration with complex award arrangements is also really important and can be quite complex in Australia and other countries as well. But making sure that people are getting paid fairly, even if that's not legislated. Relationship and stakeholder engagement is really can be really different for each organisation. So, for example, the previous organisation I worked with, working with the Indigenous communities in the north of Chile, was recognised as really a key stakeholder management issue, and the social licence to operate for a large listed corporate. And those relationships were key to not just the corporate being able to maintain its operations, but also feel valued by the local community and help the local community grow and develop in a way that they most likely could not have without that presence. So not just mitigating risk and mitigating the negative consequences or environmental or otherwise of the operation, but actually turning those around to positive so that communities in the local area value that presence. In the case of Red Cross, social impact is probably part of our core mission. So impacting people in a positive way, and that's through volunteering as well as through program delivery, and through communities, including advocacy and humanitarian diplomacy. And that's such a large part, but being able to measure that impact is the space that we need to really develop further. So we deliver lots of programs to hundreds of thousands of people. In the last 12 months alone, there have been tens of thousands of people that have received support from the Australian Red Cross as a result of disasters. There have been hundreds of thousands of people that have received support through all of the other social work we do, whether that be through migration support or supporting vulnerable cohorts of people through programs such as Meals on Wheels or employment services, and a whole range of 400 different program areas that we work in, which I won't go through right now, but being able to actually not just deliver the activity and complete contractual and other requirements, but understand how the long-term benefits of those programs are impacting communities is really key to the S in our social impact. And then the governance is really, for us, all the processes, policy, and oversight, as well as compliance that oversee all of those processes, which we manage through in a number of ways. We have a board like any other organisation, we have subcommittees, we have fundamental principles and statutes linked into the International Federation of the Red Cross, being able to maintain those which were founded of the Geneva Convention is really key to our ESG framework also. So a couple of key messages. Matthias mentioned that as a not-for-profit, we're not necessarily required to do this. So why are we doing this? I think this is really good. ESG is good business for everyone. It's really what we all need to do. our impact as an organisation is not just about financial sustainability, it's about social, intellectual, environmental sustainability also. And as I mentioned at the start, we can only really do this together. We can only really make these positive changes jointly through partnerships. And so it is good business. It doesn't always need to cost money. I don't have a budget, being a humanitarian organisation with financial constraints, but there's so much that we can do that actually also makes financial sense. So installing things like solar, for example, might involve a capital investment, but longer term we're saving on energy costs. As an example, investing in things like good work conditions and employee conditions also has a positive impact because of staff retention. Being able to have good solid supply chains without modern slavery or other issues similarly is good for business. So some of the partnerships opportunities for increasing both Red Crosses and our corporates and other partners' social impacts include things such as training for staff, so things such as modern slavery and supply chain, international humanitarian law, as well as things like first aid that our organisation offers, emergency services providing psychological first aid, preparedness workshops in the case of disasters, and long-term emergency and recovery work. Some organisations choose to help fund things such as environmental initiatives, including offset projects in areas of impact, solar energy, electric vehicles, air quality issues. Funding other social outcomes where our strategies align, for example, walking alongside our First Nations people, vulnerable migrants in transition, supporting vulnerable cohorts of other people in our community, providing employment opportunities through our programs to vulnerable cohorts of people that we work with, such as people coming out of the justice system, disability employment service, people that are being trafficked, and providing those people with opportunities to move out of that situation. Increasing community participation through volunteering, internal staff and community initiatives, reducing waste, including recycling through our Red Cross shops and avoiding textiles ending up in landfill, or just donating to specific pills and the general Red Cross work. So achieving ESG outcomes, whether they be environmental or social, all require joint partnerships, working together with corporates, together with NGOs, together with academics, and together with government. Thanks.
All right, thank you so much, Belinda. If I got it right from your perspective, the social aspects are quite important, and the people that you're focusing on is your own employees, the community, and society in general, right? So it's quite holistic. But is it fair to say that CSR was a little bit like, we are giving back to the community, we are donating, but with ESG, we're trying to build it into our core business, like the choice of contractors that you have. You already include the social component in the choice of contractors, and the example you gave, you didn't choose the cheapest or the most cost-effective one. You choose the actual contractor that you felt would socially benefit the most of your holistic approach to ESG.
Yeah, that's correct. And I think it's understanding that value for an organisation is more than just the financial. So obviously we're not going to choose someone who's, 3 times as expensive. They need to be competitive financially as well. But when you balance those different aspects, the social as well as the financial as well as the environment, we can see that the value added to our organisation and the community ends up winning.
Great, excellent. We'll come back to those issues later. We have a question starting to come in the Q&A section as well. So feel free, everybody who is on the call today, to actually put your questions in there, and we will address them later on in the Q&A section. And I will now move on to our second speaker, who is, like myself, based in the beautiful Philippines. it is Niels Nabel, and he is the head of sustainability reporting and partnerships at Meralco. He'll be talking about the benefits of establishing a safe and inclusive organization. And Niels is basically with Meralco already in this post for a while. Meralco is the largest power distribution company in the Philippines. He is also the former management consultant at Business for Sustainable Development, or BSD, a non-profit organization that offers sustainability solutions to large-scale and publicly listed companies. Niels also founded the Ateneo Global Climate Change Week, the first ever university climate change awareness week in the Philippines, and Sun Cycling, a non-profit program that offers waste collection and segregation solutions for low-income communities located in urban areas. So Niels, welcome, and we are really looking forward to the more like big budget ESG presentation. We're shifting from NGO, Red Cross, to Meralco, and great to have you here. Great to see that you have done some excellent work as well on the wider sustainability aspects in the community. Over to you, Niels.
Yeah, thank you very much, Matthias, for the wonderful introduction. So, good afternoon, everyone, especially those who carved out time from their busy schedules to attend this webinar on a weekday. So to start, I am Niels Nable, and I'm the head of sustainability reporting and partnerships at the Manila Electric Company. And it's the largest power corporation here in the Philippines, and I am in charge of developing our company's annual sustainability report and submissions to, as well as engagement with investors, ESG rating agencies, and other stakeholders on sustainability matters. I'm also involved in our company's sustainability strategy team. My segment is entitled The Benefits of Establishing a Safe and Inclusive Organization, where I will focus on two social sustainability areas, namely occupational health and safety, as well as workforce diversity and inclusion. While these two areas of ESG are often not as prioritized as environmental issues such as climate change and pollution, especially in developing countries like the Philippines, they are increasingly becoming more important by the day. In fact, many investors and ESG rating agencies scrutinize companies' health and safety practices and diversity programs and policies, as well as long-term targets in these two areas. So now deep diving into the first S area, occupational health and safety. It is a multidisciplinary practice that deals with all aspects of employees' health and safety in the workplace, with a focus on preventing work-related hazards. This includes measures within and sometimes even beyond the premises of an organization. So occupational health and safety is also commonly referred to as occupational safety and health, or OSH, and workplace or employee health and safety. So in this area of ESG, common organizational metrics in safe man hours, number of injuries and fatalities, and number of health and safety training hours. While OHS usually regulated and monitored their employees from occupational hazards, that is basic compliance to rules and regulations. And this often leads to work-related accidents that cause major injuries and even fatalities. Despite OHS standards being mandated by law in many countries, work-related diseases and injuries are responsible for the deaths of roughly 2 million people globally every
year. Niels, I think your connection is a bit choppy. Are you still there? We can all see his beautiful slide.
Hello.
Yeah, you dropped off for a short while, but I think you're back again.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let me just repeat this slide. Despite OHS standards being mandated by by the law in many countries around the world. Work-related diseases and accidents and injuries are responsible for almost 2 million deaths globally every year, according to the World Health Organization and the International Labor Organization. And if you look at the numbers, occupational accidents and illnesses are just below diabetes, dementia, and lower respiratory infections in terms of number of fatalities worldwide. And shockingly, almost a quarter of these 1.9 million deaths every year is caused by poor indoor air quality. And this, of course, includes long-term exposure of employees to dangerous levels of air pollutants such as particulate matter and carbon monoxide. Sorry, is my audio still clear, Matthias?
Yeah, it's better now than a couple of minutes ago.
Okay.
Good, walang problema.
Okay. Yeah, so this translates actually to massive and often unnecessary losses, not just in individual companies, but also in the global economy. In fact, the International Labor Organization estimates that the annual cost to the global economy from work-related deaths and work-related diseases alone is a staggering $3 trillion. And this is why it is very important for companies to take OHS seriously and enact policies and programs that prioritize and safeguard the health and well-being of employees throughout the tenures in their organizations. And later, I will be sharing with you our OHS program in Morocco. But to move on to the second area of social sustainability that I will be focusing on, workforce diversity and inclusion. So just to set the context, diversity is the presence of differences in our organization within any given setting. So this includes gender, ethnicity, disability, and age, among others. And on the other hand, inclusion is a practice of ensuring that people in a specific organization feel a sense of belonging and support. And these two go hand in hand because on one hand, you can have a very diverse workforce, but the people do not feel that they are genuinely part of the organization. While on the other hand, you can have an inclusive organization in the strictest sense, but your employee base is dominated by people of similar backgrounds. So, for example, in our company, as an electric utility, we are heavily dominated by men. And I will go to that point later on in my presentation. And just to add more context to this, while there have been many strides towards promoting diversity and inclusion around the world, the situation still seems, rather bleak. For one, the current global labor force, for example, participation rate for women is just under 47%. And for men, it's actually 72%. That's a difference of 25 percentage points. And there are actually some regions around the world facing a gap of more than 50 percentage points. And additionally, women globally earn around 37% less than men in similar roles, according to the Global Gender Gap Report by the World Economic Forum. Additionally, in one survey, 70% of respondents indicated that they have experienced some type of discrimination or abusive behavior at work. Sadder still, that average jumps to 86% for the youngest working generation, which I belong to, which is Gen Z. And 58% of workers in their 50s or older have noticed age bias in their workplace. On the other hand, in the UK, 52% claim to have experienced discrimination during their interview or selection processes, and Black workers with academic degrees earn at least 31% less on average than white workers. So there are other issues with regard to inequality and discrimination in the workplace, but these are some of the statistics that I've gathered from different credible sources, and I'm pretty sure that when you look at countries like the Philippines, the situation is much, I guess, serious because compared to our counterparts in North America or Europe, for example, our sustainability journey is not as mature as those companies. So yeah, there you go. As, just to put into perspective, no, there have been multiple studies that show that diversity and inclusion are actually beneficial for companies, and hopefully that move towards gender, not just gender diversity and inclusion, but diversity and inclusion in general would lead to a better situation or like circumstance for all organizations around the world. So yeah, just to give you some few more numbers about the point that I just made, 75% of firms with diverse and inclusive decision-making teams around the world are predicted to exceed their financial targets. Meanwhile, based on a study performed by the Boston Consulting Group, companies that reported above average diversity on their management teams also reported innovation revenue that was 19% percentage points higher than that of companies with below average leadership diversity. And not surprisingly, these organizations also reported better overall financial performance. So moving on to case studies for Meralco. For the first one, occupational health and safety. And our company is part of our contributions to SDG 8, which is decent work and economic growth. We improve our OHS system to be at par with global practices, and we manage the impact of our operations, activities, and our services at all levels of our organizations through an effective OHS planning integrated with our company's business processes. In 2019, just 3 years ago, we launched the Target Zero Incident Zero Harm program, and we immediately saw improvements in our safety performance by significantly decreasing incident frequency and severity across our organization. And this was also supported by our award-winning safety programs such as safety alerts disseminated through email and our social media platform in our company, and an improved incident report management system, as well as daily health and safety huddles across the different departments of Meralco. And we also successfully transitioned to the new OHS ISO management system. And our OHS programs were also aligned with the Philippine Department of Labor and Employment requirements. And we are also striving to get recertified next year with our ISO 14101 and OHSAS 18001 standards next year. So yeah, and an important milestone actually in our OHS improvement journey. In February 2020, we started closely monitoring air quality through the installation of air quality sensors in strategic locations across our headquarters in Manila, Philippines. And we implemented this in partnership with our energy solution subsidiary, MServe. And the air quality monitoring drive actually helps our company by providing us with important information about air quality, such as indoor and outdoor temperatures, humidity, particulate matter, VOCs, and nitrogen dioxide. And this definitely helps us provide our thousands of employees a safer and healthier environment, especially in light of scientific findings that air pollution and unhealthy air temperatures have been linked to lung cancer, as well as multiple respiratory and cardiovascular illnesses. And beyond publishing information gathered from sensors on TV displays in our facilities, we also provide our employees the ability to access this real-time air quality data through our online app which is accessible via their laptops and mobile devices. An important development in our sustainability journey is our long-term sustainability strategy, which is up to 2050. But as part of this sustainability strategy, we have set short-term 2030 targets, and this includes OHS. For OHS, our metric really is lost time injury frequency rate, or LTIFR, which is the number of lost time injuries, which means injuries that occurred in the organization that resulted in an employee's inability to work the next full workday. And you divide this by 1 million hours worked. So for our short-term target, we are aiming for a 0.6 lost time injury frequency rate. Right now, we are at 1, and that's not actually good, because anything that's above 1, as far as I know, is not acceptable in terms of like OHS standards. So but at the same time, we are still within the regulation of our Philippine Department of Employment and Labor. Meanwhile, on the workforce diversity and inclusion front, we launched our Embrace program to drive and heighten diversity and inclusion within our organization, which includes all our subsidiaries. And in support of SDG 5 gender equality and SDG 10 reduced inequalities, our company's thrust to greater workforce diversity and inclusion is operationalized through our effort to source women for a variety of roles, from rank and file up to our senior management. Through our Embrace Diversity and Inclusion program, we have actually achieved 26% women representation in our total workforce, which is more than twice the global average for the energy sector. And additionally, 25%, or 1/4 of our senior and middle management groups are also women. And moving forward, we are aiming to expand the coverage of our Embrace program beyond gender, so that we can include socioeconomic status, disability, as well as other sexual identities and orientations, such as LGBTQ. We are also looking at including age and ethnicity as well. And true to our commitment to embracing diversity and inclusion in our company, we aim to achieve 40% women representation in our workforce by the end of this decade. And we are also exploring how we can bring diversity and inclusion to our boardroom. And to conclude, protecting employees from harm and embracing diversity and inclusion are not just nice to have for our organizations. Ultimately, they are also good for our company's bottom line and our society as a whole. So I hope you participants learned a thing or two from my presentation, and hopefully you can also operationalize better OHS and gender and diversity and inclusion in your respective companies. So thank you.
Great. Thanks so much, Niels, for a very interesting presentation and case study. There you go. You can connect with him on LinkedIn. I think I'm connected already. And hey, Niels, I think 40% women workforce as a target for a company like yourselves is pretty proactive target, right? Because it's usually all dominated by men. And interestingly, you know, in the Philippines, the SEC and PSE guidelines on sustainability reporting, and as well, one of your key metrics is very much the lost time injury illness, the OHS. I've been thinking, you know, is that good enough for us to focus more on the accident-related areas, especially because we have a lot of office-based organizations? Shouldn't we look at it more holistically, employee wellness? I mean, the accident-related deaths
Yeah.
are fairly modest compared to the lifestyle-related deaths that could be influenced by our businesses as well in helping our employees to have better food choices, especially in the Philippines, where, you know, the fast food is kind of very much high on the agenda in people's diet. And what is your opinion on that kind of shift potential?
Yeah, I actually agree with you, and that's something that we actually are looking at exploring or like integrating to our sustainability practice moving forward, especially with the thrust of our company to promote like holistic wellness and our well-being of our employees, not just in terms of like preventing physical injuries or like accidents. We are also looking at how our company impacts our employees in terms of like mental health. So we are trying to find different metrics or like measures so that we can I guess manage our workforce better in terms of like health and safety. So we are basically redefining what OHS means for us. And one thing that we are also looking at is how are we going to quantify the impact of our air quality monitoring program? Because as of now, since it's a very new program, we started it like 2 years ago only. We have not yet like substantiated it with I guess financial value. For example, like how does our program produce positive financial returns for the company? So that's something that we are trying to explore. So
yeah, I think it's good to hear that you guys are shifting to that very holistic view. And my experience or perception is that we need to get the medical insurance companies involved in this more holistic approach and KPIs, because we are paying insurance for coverage that is largely, when you look at a Philippine statistic of medical insurance coverage, it's largely people having to go to hospital with diabetes or being off work, and the kind of cardiovascular diseases. I think that was number one in the death statistics. If we can make the link there with indoor air quality, diet, and maybe as well health and fitness, wellness, mental health, and medical insurance premiums, and we can push the medical insurance premiums down, and we can get the productivity of employees up, then we should have gigantic returns from good indoor air quality and more holistic wellness approach. Personally, I believe, but what do you think? Can we make that link?
Yeah, I think no. It just really requires like collaboration between the private sector as well as the government and other stakeholders. Because
you're dropping a bit off, Niels. Maybe
it's really hard to. Sorry.
Yeah, can you repeat it quickly?
Is my audio
dropped
clear
off?
now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's a very interesting point that you made, and I think moving forward, that's something that a cross-industry or like cross-sectoral partnership between the private sector, the government, and our other stakeholders can consider moving forward. Because I mean, for example, in our company, Meralco, we are trying to redefine or like find
yeah, I think Niels, we have to bring you
expand our medical health yeah. So
yeah, maybe we bring you back in a minute because you were dropping off again. Belinda, what's your take on that? I mean, Red Cross, you guys are at the core of people's health. Can we combine proactive ESG efforts on indoor air quality, employees' diet and stuff like that with health statistics and create social value creation metrics there? Do you think that's possible?
I think everything, with ESG requires this collaboration across different industries, organisations, and actors. So I think I agree that the benefits of physical and mental health are beneficial not just for the individual employee, but for their families, for the organisation, for productivity, for people's sense of well-being. So it's a win-win situation. So absolutely, if we can ensure great physical conditions, great mental health, great quality of lifestyle, then that's going to have a positive social impact all around.
Yeah, I will go to the questions now. We prepared another poll, but I think we're in the swing of things now, and we'll skip that one. And we have 10 minutes left for our Q&A. We have two questions from Tiana. One is, how do you go about measuring social impacts? Like quantity of events to support initiatives is obviously one thing, but how the community and employees are actually impacted, livelihoods. Do you have examples to contribute to that? And then the second question was mental health support and advocating for the social factors like the budgets. I would actually say that if we get mental health right, indoor air quality right, we save a lot of money, because when employees are off sick, the productivity loss is much bigger than the money that we're spending on these things. But Belinda, your take on the first question and the second one that I commented on.
Yeah, Tatiana, it's a really great question, and it's a question that is really difficult to answer also. So there are a myriad of ways of measuring social impacts. They are generally quite complex, and it is not about measuring the number of activities. So activities that are run, or training sessions that are run, or a number of people that are touched in some way is not social impact. That's activity, and that's the shift that we need to make in measuring social impact. The impact's really the consequences. So what? So if you run X number of events, or you touch X number of people in a certain way, then the impact is really the so what. How has that benefited them or society? And ways of measuring that can be done through things such as surveys. It can be done through longitudinal research studies. Different aspects need to be considered, because often if you're making a positive impact, for example, what we're talking about on someone's mental health or physical health, it might not just be your individual company or organisation's initiative contributing to that improved mental health. There might be various aspects. So understanding the contribution or attribution of your work to that particular initiative also comes into play.
Thanks a lot, Belinda. I want to bring in Niels back again for the first question that was submitted in advance of the event. This is from a supply chain perspective. The question is, we've occasionally been asked to submit ESG policy for tender pre-qualification. They are only a nominated subcontractor, not the main contractor for the fit out, but they would like to know in years to come, how does ESG will affect them as a subcontractor? So Niels, are you looking at ESG policy and performance of subcontractors?
Yeah, just to give you an example, for Meralco, we actually have a program called MSQ, which stands for Meralco's Supplier Sustainability Scorecard. And through that program, we actually require our vendors as well as our subcontractors different requirements to measure their ESG performance. And if we are looking at the global movement in terms of sustainability, I think this is also like the direction that the private sector worldwide is moving towards. And I think that subcontractors such as yourself should probably prepare now, and it's better to be prepared now rather than later, because especially if you are dealing with listed companies and especially in heavily regulated environments, governments will really try to push you to become more sustainable, and that entails creating policies and programs on ESG. And yeah, I guess that's my take on that.
Yeah, actually, there are two sides here. One is what Meralco would like to see from the subcontractors, right, in terms of performance and compliance. But then the subcontractor can score brownie points by delivering something to Meralco that will enhance their ESG performance. And then you have a much better opportunity to make a sale. So you can actually sell more by being proactive and understanding the ESG objectives of your customers. Just read their ESG reports. It's one of the simple sales methodologies that nobody is using, right, Niels? If
Yeah,
you would be
that's
impressed
definitely right.
if your suppliers understand your ESG goals and have something special to achieve them faster.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it would also be beneficial for you to reach out not just to your main contractor, but also to your to their clients as well, to better understand their ESG requirements moving forward, so that you can prepare now.
Yeah. The other questions that were submitted in advance, one was highlight the role that indoor air quality plays in helping companies meet their ESG goals. I think Niels touched on that. Now, you have to understand here, ESG is all about materiality. How critical is it for my organization? If you're an office-based organization, then it's very, very critical. So the ESG goals you set yourself, they are sometimes given by rating agencies for specific sectors, but it doesn't mean that one ESG topic applies the same to another organization. But office-based organizations, definitely, indoor air quality should be a key focus in what they look at for employee health and wellness, and hence ESG goals. And then the third question in advance was, how can we stimulate employees to address the ESG to the board of the company? That's interesting. I think it's about empowerment. You know, if you empower your employees, I mean, Belinda, what's your take on that? Because that's one of your key objectives, right? The empowerment of employees.
It's really interesting because the millennial group in particular of employees are really passionate about initiatives such as environmental and social impact, and that bottom-up grassroots involvement and interaction and contribution from employees is just as important as the top-down support from the board. And so it's really not about necessarily how can we stimulate employees. Employees really want to get involved in this from what I've seen. And so it's actually letting employees contribute to something that they feel really passionate about, and that actually empowers employees to feel that they really want to be part of an organisation that is contributing towards positive environmental and social impacts.
Great, thanks, Belinda. We're running out of time. There are two more questions. I suggest Stephen and Lind Noel get back in touch with the speakers directly. That's the chance you have now. We will actually launch a poll which speaker you want to connect with. Would appreciate if Cheska or Iveti would launch it now. Before we then can wrap it all up. The final poll, please, poll number 3, or let me see whether IKEA speakers follow up. It's there on your screen now. Do you want to follow up with Belinda? Highly recommended. Niels, highly recommended. Matthias Gelber, not so sure whether you want to follow up with him. I wouldn't want to follow up with him. And then uHoo. I mean, the last question, for example, that we just had would be a technical question that I think you should directly address to uHoo. So yeah, please tick the boxes whom you want to follow up with. And then the speakers will get your email, and then they can directly coordinate with you. I think we had a great session today. I learned a lot, very inspiring case studies. Thanks, Belinda and Niels, for your excellent contributions and food for thought in the future for us. I will end this poll now so that we can wrap up on time. I'll share quickly the results. Oh, Niels, you're the most popular. Wow, excellent. And Belinda follows closely second. So there we go. Excellent, guys. That was great. And I think we have a little video that uHoo will share with us at the end. And for sure, see you again soon. And hopefully someone will win 30 minutes with me on a consultation in this area free of charge. So I'm looking forward to that. Thanks a lot. Greetings from Matthias Gelber. And thanks uHoo for hosting this excellent webinar, and wonderful to have our speakers, Belinda and Niels, with us. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Matthias.
everyone.
Poor indoor air impacts the health and safety of your employees. It also increases the risk of coronavirus spreading in the workplace. Employees continuously exposed to various pollutants in the air are more likely to get sick, perform poorly, and miss work. Research has shown that poor indoor air costs companies at least $1,000 per employee per year due to productivity loss. There has never been an easy way to deal with pollutants in the air until now. uHoo Aura continuously monitors all the important things in the air, so you know exactly what to do to improve it and also to reduce coronavirus risk. View real-time data of all your offices and manage them from one dashboard. Get alerts if safety limits are exceeded so you can immediately take action. You'll get tips on what actions to take to reduce risk and ensure the health and safety of your employees 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. uHoo. Take control. Ensure safety. Improve productivity.